I was standing at the edge of my sister's wedding reception, holding a champagne glass I hadn't touched, wondering how something so beautiful could feel so suffocating. My name is Marilyn Brown. I'm 28 years old, a pediatric nurse from Seattle. And that night, while everyone else was celebrating love and new beginnings, I was carrying a secret worth more than $16 million. A secret I wasn't allowed to speak. A secret that, if revealed even once, would cost me everything. The wedding was flawless in the way only obscene amounts of money can make things flawless. The estate sat just outside the city, surrounded by manicured gardens that looked too perfect to be real. Crystal lights shimmered above us. A live string quartet followed guests from the ceremony to the reception. Champagne flowed like water. Vanessa loved that detail. She loved everything that looked expensive. Vanessa Brown, my older sister. The bride? 31 years old, impeccably dressed, perfectly styled. She moved through the crowd like someone who had finally stepped into the life she believed she deserved. Every laugh was loud. Every smile was practiced. Every glance said, "Look at me." I made it. I was her maid of honor. Or at least, that's what the program said. In reality, I felt more like a background prop, a reminder of where she came from and who she was leaving behind. "You should smile more," Vanessa whispered as she passed me, her veil floating behind her like a victory flag. "People will think you're miserable." I wanted to laugh. Miserable didn't even begin to cover it. I forced a smile and nodded. That was my role tonight. Smile, nod, stay quiet. No one here knew that 3 weeks earlier, my entire understanding of my family had been shattered inside a quiet law office downtown. No one knew that the parents we buried in sealed caskets weren't poor, weren't careless, weren't ordinary. No one knew that I, the overlooked sister with the sensible shoes and hospital badge, had been entrusted with a fortune that could rewrite every power dynamic in this room, especially not Vanessa. She clinked her glass for attention, the room falling silent almost instantly. She loved that sound, loved how easily people listened when she wanted to speak. "I just want to say," she began, her voice trembling in that carefully rehearsed way. "After losing our parents so suddenly, it means everything to know I'm marrying into a family that understands stability, success, and security." A few guests nodded sympathetically. Someone dabbed their eyes. I felt my throat tighten. Security. Success. Stability. Our parents had driven an old sedan and argued about grocery coupons. Or at least that's what Vanessa believed. That's what everyone believed. And standing there, listening to her rewrite our history in front of 100 people, I realized how badly she needed that story to be true. She glanced at me mid-speech, just long enough to remind me where I stood. "And of course," she added, smiling sweetly, "my sister Marilyn has always been content with less." A ripple of polite laughter followed. I swallowed hard and raised my glass, even as my hand trembled. Content with less, if only she knew. A waiter passed by, carrying plates of food that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Someone bumped into me and apologized without really looking at my face. I caught fragments of conversation everywhere. Whitmore money. Generational wealth. She married up. Vanessa was glowing. Her new husband, Ethan, stood beside her, confident and relaxed, the way men get when they think they've won something valuable. I'd overheard him earlier telling a friend, "Everything will be sorted once the estate clears." The estate. I felt my pulse quicken. He had no idea. None of them did. I kept hearing the lawyer's voice in my head. Calm, precise, unyielding. "Do not tell anyone. Not your sister. Not her husband. Not until after the wedding. If you do, the inheritance disappears." I remembered sitting alone in my car afterward, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. $16 million. More money than I could even picture. And all I had to do to keep it was stay silent while my sister treated me like I was invisible. The music swelled. Vanessa and Ethan took to the dance floor. Applause erupted. Confetti fell from somewhere above, catching in my hair. I stood there, smiling, clapping, playing my part. Inside, something else was happening. That night, as I watched my sister celebrate a future built on assumptions, I realized something I wouldn't fully understand until much later. This wedding wasn't just a celebration, it was a test, and I was the only one who didn't know how far it was going to go. All I knew was this: Keeping my mouth shut that night felt like swallowing glass. But it would turn out to be the smartest thing I had ever done. Because 5 days later, the dead were going to walk back into our lives. 3 weeks before Vanessa's wedding, my phone rang while I was hiding in a supply closet at the hospital, pretending to organize gauze so my supervisor wouldn't ask me to stay for another double shift. The number was unfamiliar. I almost ignored it. Almost. "Marilyn Brown?" a calm male voice asked when I picked up. "Yes." "This is Andrew Collins. I'm the attorney handling your parents' estate. I need to meet with you today, privately." My stomach dropped. "I thought everything was still pending," I said carefully. "My sister said it could take months." There was a pause. Not awkward, deliberate. "Your sister is not wrong," he replied, "but there are matters that concern you alone." Those last 3 words stayed with me long after the call ended. That afternoon, I sat across from Andrew Collins in an office that smelled like polished wood and old money. Everything in the room felt heavy. The desk, the silence, even the air. He studied me for a moment before speaking, as if deciding how much truth I could handle at once. "Marilyn," he said, folding his hands, "what I'm about to tell you will contradict everything you believe about your parents." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Your parents were not struggling," he continued. "They were not careless with money, and they were certainly not poor." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was impossible. "My father was a high school teacher," I said. "My mother packed her lunch every day to save money." Andrew nodded. "By choice." He slid a folder across the desk. Then another. And another. Investment accounts, property deeds, long-term portfolios, royalties from educational software my father had helped design decades ago and quietly licensed nationwide. Numbers blurred together until one finally stood out. $16.4 million. I stared at it, convinced I had misread the page. "There's been a mistake," I whispered. "That can't be my family." Andrew's expression didn't change. "Your parents lived far below their means intentionally. They believed hardship built character. They believed money revealed who people really were." My chest tightened. "Why wouldn't they tell us?" I asked. "Why let us think?" "Because they wanted to see who you would become without it," he said gently. "Especially now." Now. I thought of the funeral, the closed caskets, Vanessa criticizing the flowers, complaining about delays in settling the estate, asking how long it would take before things were finalized. Andrew leaned forward. "There is one more thing you need to understand," he said. "The inheritance is not divided equally." The word hit harder than the number. "I'm getting more?" I asked, already feeling sick. "You are receiving the majority," he confirmed. "But there is a condition." Of course there was. "You must not tell anyone about this inheritance," he said. "Not your sister, not her fiancé, not anyone. Not until 1 week after the wedding." My heart started pounding. "That's in 3 weeks," I said. "You want me to stand at my sister's wedding knowing all this and say nothing?" "Yes." "And if I don't?" Andrew didn't hesitate. "The entire estate will be donated to charity." The room felt suddenly smaller. "Why would they do this?" I asked. "Why put us through something like this?" Andrew's eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. "Because your parents understood human nature better than most people. They trusted this timing, and they trusted you." I left the office in a fog, sat in my car for nearly half an hour, hands gripping the wheel, trying to process what I'd just been handed, or what I'd just been burdened with. $16 million. And silence. Over the next few days, Vanessa called constantly. Wedding updates, seating charts, complaints about flowers, complaints about money. "We're adding a champagne wall," she said excitedly one night. "Ethan says it'll impress his parents." "That's great," I replied, staring at my laptop screen where my student loan balance suddenly felt absurdly small. "You don't sound excited," she snapped. "This is my wedding, Marilyn." I bit my tongue so hard it hurt. Then came the comments. "You probably won't get much from the estate anyway," she said casually over coffee. "Mom and Dad didn't have much. But don't worry, I'll make sure you're taken care of." Taken care of. The words echoed in my head. Every day, it got harder to stay quiet. Every smile felt forced. Every phone call felt like a test I didn't know I was taking. But something deep inside me knew this wasn't just about money. It was about who we were when we thought no one was watching. And the wedding was coming fast. The week after my meeting with Andrew, I started noticing things I had always explained away before. Vanessa asked for the spare key to our parents' house to check on things. I didn't think much of it until she sent me photos later that night. The living room was covered in sticky notes, yellow tags on furniture, blue ones on shelves, pink ones on drawers. Mine, donate, sell. I didn't see a single note with my name on it. "I'm just organizing," she said when I asked about it. "You know how chaotic Mom was." Mom was meticulous. Vanessa knew that. 2 days later, I stopped by the house myself. The place smelled different, colder, like a space that had already been emotionally emptied. Our parents' bedroom looked like it had been searched, not cleaned. Drawers pulled out, mattress slightly shifted. "Old people hide cash everywhere," Vanessa said casually when I mentioned it. "Better to check now before someone else does." Someone else. She said it like I wasn't standing right there. Her tone changed after that. Sharper, more dismissive. Every conversation turned into a reminder of how little I mattered in her version of the future. "You're lucky," she told me over lunch one afternoon. "You don't have to worry about money. You just work, go home, repeat. Simple." I smiled tightly. "Someone has to take care of sick kids." She waved her hand. "That's sweet. But let's be honest, Marilyn. That job doesn't really prepare you for real financial decisions." Real. The word stung more than I expected. The worst moment came 3 nights before the wedding. Vanessa had sent me to the garden to check on the lighting, which really meant she didn't want me near her conversation. I lingered behind a hedge, pretending to adjust a strand of bulbs, when I heard Ethan's voice. "Once the estate clears, we'll consolidate everything," he was saying. "There's no reason to split control." Vanessa laughed. "Exactly. Marilyn wouldn't know what to do with money anyway." My chest tightened. "We'll offer to manage her share," Ethan continued. "Frame it as protection. She'll sign. She always does." "Give her a month," Vanessa replied. "She's too trusting." I felt something inside me crack. Not my heart, something colder, harder. They were talking about me like I wasn't a person, like I was an obstacle with a signature. I stepped back quietly, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk inside and tell them everything. I wanted to watch their faces collapse under the truth. But I didn't, because later that night, Vanessa knocked on my door with a folder in her hands. "I've been thinking about you," she said, smiling too brightly. "After the wedding, things are going to get complicated. Lawyers, taxes, paperwork." She placed the folder on the table between us. "This would make things easier," she continued. "You can sign over management rights to me and Ethan, just temporarily, for your own good." I flipped through the pages. Legal language, polite wording, absolute control. "You trust me, right?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. The same sister who used to steal my clothes and deny it. The same sister who always needed to win. "Yes," I said quietly. The word tasted like ash. She squeezed my hand. "Good. We'll take care of you." That night, I lay awake replaying everything I had heard. Every insult, every assumption, every plan made behind my back. The truth sat heavy in my chest. It would have been so easy to end it all with one sentence. "I know about the money," but I didn't say it, because somewhere beneath the anger and the hurt, I remembered Andrew's voice. "Your parents trusted you." So I stayed silent. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. Vanessa and Ethan weren't pretending anymore. They thought they had already won. 5 days after the wedding, I was sitting on Vanessa's white leather couch, afraid to lean back too hard in case I left a crease. The house was enormous. Glass walls, marble floors. The kind of place that looked more like a showroom than a home. Vanessa called it their starter house. I kept my hands folded in my lap and reminded myself to breathe. She paced in front of me, heels clicking sharply against the floor, a thick folder tucked under her arm. "Once the estate is released, we'll move fast," she said, barely looking at me. "Ethan's lawyer says timing is everything." I nodded, saying nothing. She stopped suddenly and turned to me with a tight smile. "I really hope you're ready to sign the papers today. This will make things smoother for everyone." Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Vanessa frowned. "We're not expecting anyone." She walked toward the door, irritation already creeping into her voice. "Hello?" I heard the door open. Then silence. Not the awkward kind. the kind that sucks all the air out of a room. "Vanessa," a woman's voice said gently, "aren't you going to invite us in?" I stood up so fast, the delicate teacup in my hand slipped and shattered against the floor. The sound echoed through the room, but no one reacted. Because standing in the doorway were my parents. Alive. Breathing. Real. My mother, Helen Brown, looked exactly the same, wearing her sensible blazer and calm expression. My father, Richard Brown, stood beside her, hands in his pockets, as if he'd just stepped in from a walk. Behind them were Andrew Collins and a woman holding a briefcase I immediately recognized as a notary. Vanessa's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "But you're dead," she whispered. "No, sweetheart," my mother said calmly, stepping inside. "You buried 2 empty caskets." Vanessa staggered backward. "This isn't funny." "It's not meant to be," my father replied, his voice steady. "Sit down, sir." Something in his tone made her obey. My legs felt weak as I lowered myself onto the chair across from them. My heart was racing, but beneath the shock, a strange clarity settled in. Andrew cleared his throat. "Mr. and Mrs. Brown asked me to explain." "This is fraud," Vanessa snapped. "I'm calling the police." The notary finally spoke. Everything was filed legally. Temporary death declarations, estate observation clauses, fully compliant. Vanessa turned pale. My mother looked at her with a sadness I'd never seen before. "We wanted to know who you would become when you thought we were gone." Andrew opened his laptop. The first video played silently. Vanessa in our parents' house, the day after the funeral. "I'm checking the mattresses," her voice said. "Old people always hide money." The second clip showed her sitting across from a different lawyer. "My sister isn't stable," she said on screen. "I'd be better suited to manage everything," Vanessa screamed. "Turn it off!" Andrew didn't. The final clip was the worst. Vanessa and Ethan at dinner. "She'll sign," Ethan said casually. "She always does." Vanessa covered her face. "We watched everything," my father said quietly. "We hoped grief would bring out your compassion. Instead, it brought out your greed." Vanessa looked at me then, eyes wild. "You knew." "I found out 3 weeks ago," I said softly. "And she kept quiet," my mother added. "Even when you insulted her. Even when you tried to manipulate her." Andrew stood. "Regarding the estate, Vanessa Brown receives 1 distribution." He slid a document across the table. "The cost of the wedding, $387,000, paid by your parents." Vanessa stared at it. "That's it?" "That was your inheritance," my father said. "One perfect day." Ethan burst through the door moments later, freezing when he saw my parents. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. Andrew didn't look up. "Marilyn Brown is the primary heir." Ethan turned to Vanessa, calculation already flashing across his face. I watched something collapse in her eyes. In that moment, I understood. Silence hadn't protected me. It had revealed everything. 18 days. That was how long Vanessa's marriage lasted. I know the exact number because she called me on day 19, her voice shaking, asking if I could help her find a lawyer. Ethan had filed for an annulment, claiming he'd been misled about her financial situation. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so devastating. By then, the truth had already settled into everyone's bones. Ethan disappeared quickly. One moment, he was everywhere, talking about our future, about leveraging assets. The next, he was gone, chasing another version of the life he thought he deserved. I later heard he remarried within a year, someone with a last name that carried more weight than Brown ever did. Vanessa moved out of the glass and marble house and into a small apartment closer to downtown, a place she once would have mocked. She took a job at a mid-level real estate firm, selling modest homes to ordinary families, the kind of work she used to call beneath her. The first time I saw her there, she looked different, not poorer, just quieter, less polished, more real. "It's not a mansion," she told a young couple during a showing, then caught herself. "But it's a start." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. As for me, my life didn't change the way people expect when they hear the words inheritance and millions. I didn't quit my job. I didn't buy a house on the water or a car that turned heads. I paid off my student loans. I took a week off work just to breathe. And then I went back to the pediatric ward, back to the place where no one cared about my bank balance, only whether I knew how to calm a terrified child or reassure a parent who hadn't slept in days. With Andrew's help, I set up a medical assistance fund for families who couldn't afford treatment for their kids. It wasn't flashy. It didn't come with my name engraved on a wall, but it felt right, like something my parents would have quietly approved of. My parents eventually settled in Florida, of all places, a modest condo near the beach. My dad wears loud shirts now. My mom paddleboards at sunrise. We talk every week, but we rarely talk about money. We didn't do this to punish anyone, my mother told me once. We did it to protect what mattered. What mattered, I learned, was never the money. It was who we became when we thought no one was watching. Vanessa and I didn't reconcile overnight. There were no dramatic apologies, no tearful embraces, just coffee, awkward conversations, long silences that slowly grew less heavy. Over time, something softer replaced the resentment. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. One afternoon, she looked at me and said, "I thought inheritance meant security. Turns out it meant exposure." She wasn't wrong. The strange thing about money is that it doesn't change you. It just removes the disguises. Vanessa, faced with the promise of unearned wealth, became someone she didn't recognize. I like to believe I stayed the same, but the truth is, I don't know. Maybe I just passed the test she failed. Maybe the roles could have been reversed. My parents believed money was like fire. It could warm you, or it could burn everything down. The difference wasn't in the fire. It was in the hands holding it. Standing at my sister's wedding, smiling through clenched teeth, I didn't understand that yet. I only knew that keeping quiet felt unbearable. But silence saved me. It saved my future. It saved my sense of self. And in a strange way, it saved my sister too, even if she couldn't see it at the time. If you listened to this story from beginning to end, I'd really love to know what you think. Did you like this story? What themes or situations should I share next? And if stories like this matter to you, please like and subscribe so you can hear more women's stories, more secrets, and more moments where silence changes everything.